right, so this demo is going to go through how to do some Procreate motion graphics. So the things that we're going to be talking about here is how to animate scale, how to animate rotation, do something called trim path, and we're also going to be talking about maybe how to do effects on our motion graphics. So first thing we want to do here is start a new file. I'm just going to go up to the top right. I'm going to say for this one, I'm going to do a square, though it might actually be beneficial for us to even go in and customize this because we don't really need this to be a very large file. So I might even go to inches and let's say 6 by 6 inches. And nice thing here, I can lower my DPI a little bit because this is going to be an animation. So I'm going to say 150. Notice my max layers is really high, and also then just this is a little bit smaller of a piece. We don't really need to work huge. So this looks good. I'm going to hit create. First thing we want to do is we're going to go and we're going to create just a background color. So I'm going to go up to the top right. I'm going to go to my background color, and I'm just going to pick something. I'm going to go with something a little bit darker because I want to have a little bit of a glow on some of these things that I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to pick a nice dark background or darker background. I'll go with this blue. And I also noticed that I have one layer already created. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and turn on some settings here. So we're going to go up to our wrench in the top left. And first thing we want to turn on is animation assist. Okay, the next thing, we also are going to turn on our drawing guides, and I'm going to say edit drawing guide. And here we're going to do something, we're going to do some isometric. So I'm going to switch that. Now, up at the top I have this slider, and I can change the color of that grid. So if I need that to be a little bit lighter so I can see it, I can adjust that. And I can mess with my grid size as well. So right there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and toggle on assisted drawing in the bottom right. So this looks good, I'm ready to roll. So I'm going to go ahead, done. And I'm going to go to my layer. Now notice on my layer it does say assisted. Okay, if I tap that layer, notice that that's checked. If I create a new layer and I want that on, I need to tag that. I need to tap it and turn on drawing assist. Otherwise that will not automatically be there. So on this new layer, we're going to go ahead and draw a diamond shape. So I'm going to go up, get my brush. I'm going to go down to calligraphy. I'm going to go monoline. And so we want to do something that kind of contrasts the background. So I'm going to go with maybe like a hot green for this one. And so we have this drawing assist on this layer, and what this does is it kind of allows our lines to stick to this grid system, right? So I'm going to find like a nice thin line. I don't want this to be too thick, and I'm just going to start kind of developing this diamond shape. So I'm going to go and put a line here. I'm going to be kind of careful because I do want these lines to be precise, but we can always clean them up. So, you know, if I have a little overhang like that, I could go back and clean that up. Even just by going in with an eraser and just kind of cleaning that up that way, or I can clean up the entire line by going in. You can see that it'll take the edge off of this whole thing. So, oops. All right, so I'm going to go in and just kind of do this diamond shape. Now, you do want to, you know, at least be mindful of what you're drawing in terms of with these guidelines here, because we want this to be even, we want this to be a balanced piece. Whoops. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm trying to match the height of that line. That looks good. I want these to converge at the same spot. So I'm going to go from here up, and again from here up. And one thing I do want to do is make sure that these gaps get filled. So when I draw, I want to make sure that there's no gaps in between. So I'm just going to go and kind of manually pop that in. This doesn't need to be completely perfectly clean, but that looks pretty good. All right. So we have this diamond, it looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and even adjust this real quick. Make this just a little bit smaller. I can even stretch it. If I turn on freeform, I can stretch this to make it a little bit wider. I'm gonna go uniform again and just kind of center this up in the page. Now notice my snapping is on. This is kind of good for just centering stuff on your canvas, so that looks good. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna duplicate this layer. So I'm gonna go up to my layers, I'm gonna swipe and duplicate, okay? And then on both of these, we're going to end up turning off the drawing assist at this point. So I'm going to tap and then just uncheck drawing assist. Next thing, I'm going to turn off my bottom layer, uncheck it. Okay, on my top layer, this one I want to be filled with this green. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in. And you can see that that's easily filled. From here, we're going to do a little bit of like, kind of give this a little bit of a glow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that layer, I'm going to tap it, and we go to alpha lock so I can only color on the actual shape that's been filled already. So I'm going to kind of mess around here, and I'm going to go in with a new brush and a slightly lighter color. I'm going to go into my airbrushing. And let's try soft brush is good, soft airbrush is good. Just want to mess with the scale a little bit there. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of go around the edge and just kind of give this maybe a little bit of a glow to it. Yeah, I can play with my scale. The softer that edge, kind of the more feathered that'll look. I could even go a little bit lighter there. Oops. Just knocking those corners just a little bit. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. I could even go back, and if I wanted to put a little bit of a darker version of this in the center, I can go in, same thing with that tool, and just kind of put that in the middle. And so now we want this to kind of blend a little bit. One easy way to do this is by going up to my adjustments, and I'm going to go to Gaussian blur, hit layer, and I'm just going to blur this together a little bit so that'll be like a nice smooth transition there. All right, that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead now and just turn off my drawing guides. I don't need these anymore. I already have this created. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to use some grouping. So we have both these layers made, and we're going to combine these into a group. So I'm going to swipe to the right on both of those, hit group, and now I'm going to title that group 1. This is something just to help yourself stay organized. And next we want to duplicate this because we're going to start with this thing just kind of in the middle, and then the next one we'll start animating. We'll keep duplicating. So I'm going to go ahead again and swipe, duplicate the whole group. Now for animations, if you look down at the bottom, we have our 2 frames right now. Those frames will animate by group or by layer. So if I take one of these layers out, say I took a layer, this one image out, that would then play at a different time. You can see I have a 3rd cell there, so I want to undo that. So I'm going to start with frame 1 is just going to look like this, but on frame 2, I'm going to modify something. So what I want to do first is I want to go to my settings down in my animation window, and I'm just going to go ahead and mess with my onion skin. So I'm going to go just fewer frames. 3 or 4 is fine. And I'm going to go here, open up this layer, and I'm going to go to that top layer, like my diamond shape, which is filled. And I'm going to go to my arrow, and I'm just going to slightly reduce the scale of this. Now, uniform is on. I have snapping on, so I'm going to just reduce that and then try to center that up in there. You can see those yellow crosshairs tell me that I'm centered up. Okay, so this one you could go ahead and rename if you want as number 2. Close that up, and I'm going to go ahead and swipe and duplicate. Okay, I'm going to go back in. I'm going to do this so that this little diamond shape kind of appears like it's going to pop in and out. So you're going to have a couple quick shrinks, and then it's going to pop back up. All right, again, if you really want to be organized, I recommend titling your groups and your layers. You don't need to, but it does make stuff a little bit easier. So I'm going to go in here, and let's see. Next thing, I'm going to shrink this one up a little bit again. Again, I tap that layer, and maybe one more subtle shrink. That looks okay. And then I'm going to have the next group pop up. So swipe, duplicate. Let's go in. This one's going to get larger now. So maybe it gets almost back to where it was initially. And I'm just trying to line stuff up here. And let's go ahead, one more. I'm not going to rename this time, but you probably should. And I'm just going to see. You can see I can't see where my original scale was, so that's why I just went back in and messed with my onion skin. So maybe 7 is a good number for my onion skins. And now I'm just going to go in and just match that scale to the original. Could also do this by just duplicating the original and moving it over. But all right, now one way to condense layers here at some point would be to, on all these, because we're really done with layers and frames 1 through 4 here. So I'm going to go ahead and title that one. But we're done with 1 through 4. Those are all just going to play. And so technically I could go back to frame 1 and I could pinch these 2 together because I don't really need those. But later on, frame 6, right here, that layer, that one we're going to leave. We need those separated. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and just play this for you real quick so you can see. Drop my onion skins down so it just looks normal. So this is the look that we're going for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to pop. So let's play this. So you're going to see a little bit of almost like a pulsing, right? So it kind of looks like a heartbeat. All right, next thing, let's go ahead on, and I'm going to go up to my layers, and I'm going to go and just my groups. I'm going to duplicate that most recent one. So swipe, duplicate. Now we're going to start animating that back layer, which is that little outer outline diamond. So I'm going to kind of have this thing start moving out from there. So I want to just stretch this up just a little bit. Oops. Okay, now notice there, my entire group's moving. That's not what we want. So I got to reset. I'm going to go back here, make sure I'm on the right layer. I just want that diamond shape, not the entire thing. So if that happens, you're not trying to animate the entire group. You just want to animate that one layer. Okay, so it looks good. Now I'm going to give a little bit of a glow effect to this. So I'm going to go up to my adjustments. I'm going to go down to Gaussian blur and just blur this slightly. Give it a little bit of a glow effect. If I really wanted to be super fancy, I could probably even like duplicate this and make one slightly smaller and lighter. Okay, but I think that looks fine right now. Okay, now we're going to keep doing this. So I'm going to duplicate again. Go to my layer. Okay, again, make sure I'm on the right layer, not the group. Okay, make this a little bit bigger. Okay, same thing. Swipe, duplicate, go to that layer, new one. We're just going to have this get larger until eventually it's going to go off screen completely. All right, let's go ahead and, once I'm done, I'm just tapping that arrow to reset. Let's go ahead and hit play. Let's see how this looks. So we have this nice little, animation where it's just kind of pulsing out, right? So really simple, right? Now, say we wanted to continue this and have some more stuff go on. We could keep going. We could say have something else new develop. Now, what you might want to do is start a new file at this point, or you could keep going, but you do want to be mindful about how many layers you have. So I'm going to go to my layers, and you can see I have a bunch of groups now. Okay, it might be a good idea to go ahead and title these so you know what everything is in case you need to make adjustments. Okay. Now, how do we conserve layers? Well, I'm done with this. This looks good. I'm going to move on now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead down and I'm just going to pinch any of these merge layers together. And that way I can serve layers because I think my max was like 200. So that actually runs out quite quick. All right, next thing. Okay, I'm going to have some new stuff start going on here. And I could even go back here if I wanted to pause this, say like that diamond at the beginning, I wanted to pause. I could click on that layer and even have a hold duration on there for maybe like 3 or 5 frames and see what that looks like. So then let's hit play. It'll pause just right at the end there. Looks good. Okay, so the one thing we didn't talk about here, we talked about scaling, we talked about some effects. We haven't done rotation yet, and we haven't done trim path. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go after, I'm gonna make maybe I'll have this thing move off. So I'm gonna go click on this layer, I'm gonna duplicate. Now I have some adjustments to do there. Now that one diamond is kind of, or the one edge there is kind of off. So I might even, I don't know. I'm gonna ignore that, or I'm just gonna erase it actually. So I have a little bit of like a little bit of that glow appearing at the edge. So I just want to get rid of that, just with an eraser. And what I'm gonna have this thing do is kind of appear like it moves down. So really, really simple this time. So it goes to this cell, then this one, I'm gonna have this diamond slightly move upward. All right, I wanna probably turn on my onion skin so I can see what the movement is. Okay, let's go ahead and duplicate that frame. Have it slightly move upward again. This is kind of like an easy ease-ish effect. Not really, but it's just some extra little animating, gives a little bit of character to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate. Now, we do a lot in a little bit of time. So subtle movement up, subtle movement down, back down, and then we're gonna have this thing shoot off. So I'm gonna duplicate and really have this thing move down, and that's gonna create that illusion of speed. So this is all about, again, what we talked about, which is spacing and timing. How fast does something happen? All right, and I'm gonna have this end like that. Okay, let's take a look at this thing. So, all right, nice little pop, shoots out that little echo thing. And again, I could just have that loop too. I don't need to keep going. All right, but we're gonna continue this animation. I'm gonna show you one other thing. So now we're gonna have something just kind of appear, right? And what's that thing we're gonna have appear? Let's see here. We're going to maybe have a circle slide in here or something. So on this blank cell, I'm going to make a new layer, and on this layer I'm going to have a circle. So let's go, I'll do kind of like a reddish yellow. You know what? I'm going to go kind of bright pink for this one. And I'm going to go back. We're going to go back to calligraphy, monoline. And so I'm going to click and hold and draw my circle. I'm going to tap my pinky on and just kind of rescale this, pick up. And I'm going to go ahead and center this thing. Again, looking at my guides there. Perfect. Okay, and so that's my most recent frame. It's just this circle appears, right? Well, maybe we want this to move on. So I'll have this thing maybe start kind of off screen. Actually, think about this. If I move this off screen, it's going to disappear. So I have a better idea here. What we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this cell. So duplicate. And we'll say this thing's going to move in gradually, but I'm going to kind of work reverse. So I duplicate this cell maybe 4 times, and I go back because the first frame of that circle, we want it to be partially on. Again, you want to line it up using those guides. Okay, that looks good. Second one, what happens if you don't do this is your circle will cut off and you won't be able to use the same one. So that's kind of my workaround there. So let's take a look at this. Pump, boom. Now we have our circle slide in. All right, what's next? We're going to use this thing called trim path. Okay, trim path is a technique in After Effects, but we're going to kind of do a workaround method of it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate that frame, and this is really easy. All I'm going to do is start erasing this thing. So I'm going to go with my eraser. I'm going to say just use a monoline eraser. Okay, and I'm just going to erase. I'm going in pretty big brush. I'm going to have this thing just start I'm going to make a rounded kind of eraser mark. Now I'm going to get rid of my onion skins because I don't want to see that. Okay, I'm just going to kind of round that out. Do a little round cap on there. I'm just going to erase just a little bit of this circle, and then I'm going to keep going. So go ahead and duplicate. Again, erase a little bit more. Swipe out the stuff you don't need. Duplicate. So you notice that I'm duplicating down on my frames. I don't always do that. I could just do this in the layers, but right now how I'm working, I think this is just a little bit easier. Okay. How much do you want to take away each time? You know, maybe, I don't know, 1/6 or 1/8 of the size of it. So. And so now we just have this one little shape that's there, and maybe we want this thing to now start rotating. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate. I'm going to go to my arrow, and I want this to rotate. Now let's see what happens here. Oops. If I move this, that looks like that rotation is looking pretty good. So let's rotate it a little bit, and then we'll go to our frames. We're going to go to duplicate. We're going to go rotate, go to, again, just duplicating and just grabbing that green sphere to rotate this thing. Okay. Hoping that looks good. Let's take a look at it. I might have not had this thing centered, but that looks pretty good. From here, we can go ahead to our wrench. We can go to share, and then we're going to send this either out as an MP4 or a GIF animation. The GIF will loop, which is a nice thing. If you do it as a GIF, you want to hit export and save it to your files. If you're posting to Schoology, you want to then upload this to your resources before submitting, because then it'll actually loop play. So good luck.